One person told. Right. This is not a democracy. You noticed this, right? All right. Week from today. I think I said last time it was on Thursday, but I have 4 classes. I'm getting confused. So week from today, we're going to cover addiction. Last few minutes of the last few slides today. We're going to start talking about brain development. A subject dear to my heart, being a child relative. We're going to set up on Thursday and have a test on Tuesday. Plenty of time to study, right? It's like 5 days. Probably should start even maybe today's study. The older stuff. Right. Questions about the test? Bring a Scantron. 9634. Big pink sheet. Make sure it's the right one. Bring a pencil. Bring a brain. That's all you need. All right. Addiction. Addiction is a huge problem in our society, right? It's not a new problem. It's been a problem in societies ever since we've had humans. As far as I know. I think addiction goes back way well into prehistory. It's not a new thing. It might be worse than a problem because the availability of addictive substances increased. Before it used to be just alcohol. Maybe you get some opiate, alcohol kind of limited. But now the proliferation of addictive substances has made addiction a greater concern than before. My belief, as most physicians' belief is, that addiction is part voluntary and part brain. It's a brain disorder. The addiction part itself is an addiction process coming from the brain. We call it brain disturbances. How does the brain change to maintain addiction? We'll discuss that. The voluntary part, of course, is the initial decision to take the addictive substance. Alcohol, cocaine, amphetamine, meth, whatever it is. That part is voluntary. So the best way not to become addicted is to don't start. You know this already, right? And if you are addicted, we'll talk about ways, at least theoretically, to get off. Drugs at work, therapeutic programs at work. This class is not a psychology program, so I have to keep that kind of short. I'd like to remind you about neurotransmitters, especially involving glutamate. Glutamate. Did I say the answer? I might have said the answer. That's okay, right? Fully intentional. Wake up.
I have the wrong channel.
All right. Shall I start with Gizmo? All right. Anti-inhibited pain.
Oh no, this is A.
We talked about the context of excitotoxicity.
I have no idea.
The most common excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain. Which one is it? You have plenty of time. 3 seconds left. Plenty of time. No more time. I hope to be 100%, but I guess not. Unrealistic expectations. It is not dopamine or serotonin. It is. I won't take the answer to this question.
No.
Blockade, inhibition of what neurotransmitter causes office-spotting. Office-spotting.
B?
Remember Sheila? You got this one down.
Is it B?
You don't remember Sheila? Page back so fast in the notes.
Is it B?
It's the most common inhibitory neurotransmitter in the spinal cord.
I think it might be B, but I don't know.
Most common inhibitory neurotransmitter in the spinal cord.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Which one is that?
Recording? Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, it was like lysine?
Glycine is correct. If you block acetylcholine, acetylcholine is the most important excitatory neurotransmitter in muscle. If you block excitation, what is the result? Inhibition. The muscles become inhibited. In other words, they're paralyzed. The muscles are paralyzed. You can't be rigid. So blockade versus stimulation.
Enzyme. Glycine.
Questions about that? All right. So what is addiction? How do you define addiction? How do we know somebody's addicted? I like myself, I'll tell my story, I like Blue Bell ice cream a lot. I love Blue Bell ice cream. Am I addicted to it? How would you know? What question would you have to ask me to find out was I addicted to Blue Bell ice cream? Nope. It has nothing to do with tolerance. Right? Can I stop eating it? That's one. Other question, well, how would you define that? I like, my favorite one is birthday cake. It's only produced by moving out 3 months out of the year. It's seasonal, starts in the fall. Birthday cake, Bluebell ice cream. All the stores out here are out of it. What if I found a store in College Station that had some? Would I drive to College Station? How about it's in New York City? How about it's in Istanbul?
Istanbul.
On the top of Mount Everest. How much am I willing to pay? Price am I paying to get this? How much sacrifice am I willing to do? I can afford to go to Istanbul, but maybe my child can't. She doesn't have that kind of money. If she were addicted, she likes it too. She cannot afford to fly to Istanbul. She doesn't have that kind of money. But if she stole some property, bought a plane ticket, sold that property, bought a ticket, is that addiction? It's defined behaviorally. It's not defined by withdrawal, and it's not defined by tolerance. Addiction is a behavioral construct. It is not a pharmacological predefined disorder. And of course, it has a pharmacological basis, which we're going to fix and talk about. But that's a very popular misconception. Can you be tolerant or sensitized to a drug and not be addicted? Of course. Of course you can. Tolerance simply means you get less bang for your buck. Sensitization means you get more bang for your buck upon repeated administration of that particular drug. That does not imply addiction. Well, it's addiction dependence. If I stop taking a drug and have withdrawal, does that mean I'm addicted? I don't have withdrawal symptoms from not eating Bluebell birthday cake ice cream. But if I'm willing to pay $100,000 a gallon, if I'm willing to pay that, I'm addicted, right? Addiction is not defined by physical dependence. And it is not the reason that people continue to take drugs of abuse. It is not the reason, despite popular misperception. That's the reason. I like, when I get Bluebell ice cream, it makes me feel wonderful. I feel euphoric. I have a surge of dopamine in my ventral tegmental area probably. That's why I'm addicted to Bluebell ice cream, if you would define it that way. That's the reason. It's craving. What a person is willing to go through to obtain the drug, or the ice cream in my case. We're all addicted. Everybody in the classroom is addicted. I promise you. It is a universal human nature. You may say, not me. Look, maybe I'm probably addicted. I don't take drugs, I don't smoke, I don't drink alcohol. How about oxygen? Anybody here addicted to oxygen? If you hold your breath, if I clamp my hand over your mouth and nose and hold it there for 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, that's the limit of human survivability. And if the 5-minute mark say, you know, I'll take my hands off if you'll give me everything you own in your life. Would you do it? Yes. Because alternative is dying. That's how you feel with addiction. It's defined by what I'm willing to pay. What I'm willing to pay. All right. So preoccupation. I think about Bluebell all the time. Instead of doing my job, if I continue to use Bluebell, despite the doctor saying, you know, your cholesterol is now 6.2 million. That's the highest ever recorded in human history. You should stop eating so much Bluebell ice cream. And I keep going. I say, I'm not going to do Bluebell for at least a month. And then, of course, 6 days later, I got to have my fix of Bluebell. Relapse. Behavior defined. Everyone knows what withdrawal is like. Withdrawal is negative symptoms. Whatever the drug causes, withdrawal are the opposite symptoms. You can predict withdrawal by sitting on what the drug does. So if I take a drug chronically that is a downer, if I take Valium and then stop taking Valium, what's the body going to do? Valium is a repressive, inhibitory, sedative kind of drug. The reverse of that is agitation, excitement, anxiety, pacing, nervousness. Akaesthesia, the psychs call it. We talked about dopamine. I told you when we discussed the synthesis of dopamine molecules deep in the brain stem, and a part of the brain called the ventral tegmental area, VTA, that subserves drug addiction, activating that. And it turns out, as far as we know now, anything that activates that can cause addiction. Can you be addicted to drugs? How about the food? Of course. How about sex? Certainly. How about gambling? Ron was. How about internet? How about uploads? You know, people who work hard, think about the thing on the previous slide, they will do hard to get an upload. They'll spend whatever it takes, making their gift, their movie. How about a pat on the back? How about your father saying, that was wonderful? Is that addictive? How about a loved one saying, you're so wonderful, dear? That is very, very addictive. And it's not always bad. Some addictions, like oxygen, are helpful. All addictions, by definition, are not necessarily bad. They're defined by the behavioral consequences. If you work hard to be a good person, not get put in jail, you give money to charity. Did you know making a donation to charity raises your dopamine levels? Just like taking cocaine does. Can you be addicted to being a nice person? Is that bad? Very philosophical, right? Addiction is a much more complex scenario than most people give credit for being. The VCA, make sure you know that for the test. I'll discuss it now and later, several times through the semester. The most important part. The catecholamines, norepinephrine, dopamine. Well, a simple way to keep them straight from a phenomenological standpoint is that norepinephrine sets your idle speed for your brain. So right now, if you're having an average day, nothing bad's happened, nothing fabulous happened, it's just a regular old Tuesday morning, norepinephrine's in control. But if I were suddenly to tell you that everybody in this classroom is now going to get a check for $100,000 because Warren Buffett is giving me the money to distribute, all of a sudden you feel fabulous, right? You feel euphoric. You've had a shot of dopamine. Dopamine is that particular molecule. It's involved in surges of euphoria. How about people who are manic? We'll discuss mania later in the course. Is mania an addiction to that surge? Is mania an addiction to that surge? If that's true, do manic people not take drugs to make them less manic? Think about that. Drugs and abuse. It's a great story. Read about patient B19. We don't know his name because never released. That's okay. He is a human correspondent of this animal experiment here. If you let it out, this is a rat brain here. If you let a rat self-stimulate his ventral tegmental area, so every time he pushes the bar, he gets a little jolt of electricity, lasts a quarter of a second, third of a second, really short. Push the bar again, get another jolt, again and again. If you place it correctly, and in particular strains of rats or mice, they will push that bar until they die. Because they can, here's food, and here's the bar. Food over here, bar over here. I can push the bar, or I can eat. I gotta choose, right? That bar feels so good, I push that and simply starve to death. Eating a big meal when you're hungry is going to release the same chemical from the same location. It's just not as potent as pushing the bar, or taking cocaine, or crystal meth. You probably don't remember what Donkey Kong is. Anybody know what Donkey Kong is? Oh, you do? That's amazing. I thought that would be before your time. Is B19 addicted to the stimulation? The experience, he had to be disconnected despite his vigorous protest. We don't know exactly the nature of the protest. He might have become addicted in a short period of time. Questions about that? It's the power of addiction, which we know all too well, yes? We all know someone, I expect, who has an addiction. It's caused a problem in their life. Addiction cannot be defined by withdrawal, and withdrawal does not define addiction. It seems like it does, but it doesn't. And you can show that pharmacologically in a volunteer rat by showing that rats will self-inject, by similar kind of procedures I just described, morphine, an opiate drug, into the ventral tegmental area, because the dopamine molecules there have opiate receptors. Dopamine molecules have opiate receptors. So stimulating with opiate drugs stimulates the dopamine pathway. That's one reason that the opiate drugs make us all feel so good. Why heroin's addictive, right? So that's involved in addiction. Yep. You just said that already. Got that? But if you block the receptor with a drug, you get an opiate antagonist, so the opiates have no effect, and you give it just this particular part of the brain, just in the VTA, these rats do not have withdrawal. So the DTA is not involved in withdrawal symptoms. It is involved in addiction. Okay, is there some other place in the brain that might be involved in withdrawal? Of course. It's a part of the brain called the periaqueductal gray. PD, humans is called the periaqueductal gray. Right next to it, it's the red stuff. Right here. Here's the DTA over here. You see they're side by side each other, right? The pain and the pleasure are side by side. So you mean there might be a link between pain and pleasure? Anybody seen 50 Shades of Grey? I haven't seen it. I'm talking about fantasy. So it's a reverse situation here. So this part of the brain is involved in withdrawal, but not involved in addiction. But the DTA is involved in addiction. You can't define addiction by withdrawal and vice versa. That's the point. Pause for questions. This is to be confusing because this is not common perception. Your grandmother actually might miss this question. You did everything else in class right, but this one she might have misheard. All right. There's involvement. It is not major in humans, and it is not insignificant. Learning and addiction. The two aspects of learning that are important in drug addiction. One is that the addiction is going to cause brain changes in this lower part of the brain, the guaranteed test question, called the nucleus accumbens. The accumbens is not in the DTA. It's where the DTA projects to. It is the brain part of this pathway. The brainstem part is the DTA that makes dopamine. Dopamine travels there into the nucleus accumbens, called the mesolimbic system, from midbrain to limbic system. This part of the limbic system is involved in emotions, like pleasure, like ecstasy, like orgasm. That is the kind of behaviors that we're talking about right now. And it changes neurons there. And simply seeing drug paraphernalia, spoon and needle, if you're a heroin addict, can cause activity in the same region. There's no drug being administered, but the visual side of it increased activity in the nucleus accumbens. So addicts, you may know, have reported that got out of jail, they go back to their part they had, they walk in the bedroom, they've been off heroin for long been in jail, 3 months, 6 months, and they're craving it when they see their stuff. So visually provoked craving. And tolerance. It's not addiction, right? This is tolerance. Tolerance can be specific to the environment. So even though it's not involved in addiction per se, it's an important thing genetically, because if you're an addict and you take your cocaine by injection in a particular place, the same place every time, and then you go on a trip to Chicago and take exactly the same dose in a different environment, you overdose. And the question is, how can I have overdose? I measured it carefully, take exactly what I always take. It's my usual stuff. How can I have overdose? And the answer is the environment, in a new environment, does not prepare the body for the compensation reaction that it needs to defend itself against the cocaine. If you always shoot up in the same place every time, the brain knows, okay, heroin's coming, cocaine will be here in about 10 minutes. The brain starts preparing, starts to defend itself. But if you're in a new environment, the brain's not ready for it. And it gets an overdose of that. And that can be fatal. It can be fatal. Not technically, but it can. Is that fair? A very quick summary, so question would be good, if you have any.
What exactly do you mean by
learning? Learning is changing the brain by experience.
Okay, so you don't have to be like, say, learning behavior during science class, you're more likely to be able to drug.
No. Learning is simply the change the brain based on experience. And when you always take your heroin in your bedroom, every time, the brain has learned that. The brain learns that heroin in this environment is going to come. So
Okay, so it's like getting used to it.
it's getting used to it, preparing itself. Other questions? It's an important topic for our society. All right. What is this average success rate of rehab? 2%, yeah, 2 to 5. So if you read an advertisement that a rehab program has got a 40% or 80%, or take that with 6 grains of salt, because they can define improvement in a variety of ways. They were clean for 2 weeks. We'll call that a cure. And why does it fail? It fails because addiction is a brain disorder. It began as a voluntary action, and it's now modified into a brain disorder. It is being maintained by the brain. Haven't you ever wondered, if you're not an addict yourself, why people who are arrested for cocaine possession, methamphetamine, sent to jail for 6 months, 8 months, 5 years, because they had crystal meth lab, and they get out, so they've been without drugs for 5 years. Surely the addiction is gone, because the drug lasts only for a few minutes, or a few hours. And now in 5 years, and when they get out, within a week, they're back on it. You say, that's impossible. This must be their choice. They must be making bad decisions. It's their fault. It's voluntary. We should morally reprehensible. And the answer is no. It's a brain disorder. What kind of brain disorder can last for years after exposure to an addictive drug? Isn't that confusing? That worried me when I was sitting in your seat. We didn't understand this at that time. In cocaine, we know the story the best. It also is true, at least to some extent, in alcohol. Opiate addiction is more complex. Nicotine addiction, perhaps even different mechanisms entirely. We'll talk about cocaine. When you take cocaine, ingestion of cocaine activates this pathway right in. You need not know all this pathway. It's not a pathway kind of class. Except for at least one component pathway, the guy in green. The guy in green is called delta phosphate. Delta phosphate. Make sure to know delta phosphate, because it is the link between the receptor surface on the surface and the nucleus. So cocaine is a short-term product. What does cocaine do to catecholamines? It does 2 things. One thing we talked about, it blocks reuptake. Okay? Blocks reuptake. When the drug is gone, reuptake is back to normal. It lasts a very short period of time, a couple hours. But in addition to that effect, it does this internal stuff. It's going to go out and mess with the nucleus. And the nucleus is where the DNA lives. And DNA, you recognize, is going to make some long-term structural changes. Long-term. Maybe lifelong. Lifelong changes from cocaine exposure. And what it does is to, for example, make a second ampersecond. It makes, you have 1, now you've got 2. Making cocaine has changed the neural structure. It's made it larger. Dendritic spines have gotten larger, for example, cocaine. Exact details of how it changes are more or less important for our class than the fact that you make a permanent change in the neural structure. And so when you add it, the drug's gone for 5 years, it doesn't matter. The neuron is still there. The craving is still existing. And with the opportunity to have the drug again, craving says the craving is just almost undiminished from when you went to jail 5 years ago. So what does Alcoholics Anonymous say? Once an alcoholic,
Always an alcoholic.
this is what they're talking about. They did not put it in biochemical terms, because they didn't know that. But they recognize that once you develop craving, that craving can last a lifetime. That's scary, right? But that's why we have failed. Do we have any ways to block delta phosphate? We need to give it along with the cocaine. How can we do that? So we legalize cocaine, add a chemical to it that blocks delta phosphate. You can take the cocaine without becoming addicted. Would you vote for that particular federal law? Legalize cocaine. One person, you have the short hand, I recognize medically it's a great idea, but societal-wise it's a terrible idea. So how come it's not the same? How come it's not the same? Things to think about. Structural changes perpetuate the craving, rehab fails. Notice that this model is
Could craving also be like a psychological thing?
craving is psychological. Craving is, I gotta have the drug.
So like when they're in jail, they probably know that they won't have access to it, but if they're outside,
They still have the craving. But when the craving is increased when they see their old place, see the spoon, see the needles. The jails at least doesn't. You don't have the psychological part of craving. as bad in jail as you do back in the environment.
So that, I guess it's like operating things, so you can see the
Yes. Classical condition. Right. So what do physicians have to offer people with addiction? And the answer is not a whole lot. Some, and some can be really powerful in some individuals. But we don't have a cure for addiction. There's no such thing. Not yet, anyway. And there are three categories of ways to use drugs, because being our society, we use drugs to try to get people off drugs. That is the Western way, right? The three kind of drug approaches. One is agonistic treatment, an agonist. What's an agonist do? Is that like the drug or unlike the drug? It's like the drug. Well, what's the point of giving somebody who's addicted to heroin methadone? Because methadone is an opiate, and methadone is addictive. So maybe methadone will be safer. You have less overdose. You don't change the addiction, but you move the addiction from heroin to methadone. Well, is that a net gain? Should society pay for methadone, which we do? Methadone's given out for free. Qualify. Well, what's the idea? Why methadone would be safer? Is there a reason to take methadone? Why is methadone? Methadone makes you slightly high, but you don't get the huge surge of heroin that makes you feel, oh, this is wonderful. You feel, yeah, this is good. Okay. Can you work and take methadone at the same time? Yeah. Some jobs maybe not. Airplane pilots know. But working as a secretary, working in the field, working as a professor at UT Dallas, you can do all those things on methadone. Seriously. Standing here talking does not involve heavy machinery that risk of life. Nicotine patch, you might be familiar with. Some of you have tried it before. These are partial agonists. Partial agonists, from we defined a long time ago, like 2 lectures ago. It is to activate the receptor a little bit. A little bit. If you activate it completely, if you use a complete agonist, a full agonist, it's the same as a drug. So obviously that's no point. So you have partial agonist. The drug is partly like the original addictive drug, but not completely. Methadone, a little bit like opiates, enough for the addicts will take the drug, and hopefully stop taking the heroin, stop injecting themselves. Methadone's an oral solution. All right. Obviously, these things are not aversive because I'm still getting high, just not as high. I need some motivation to get off the heroin, but these are easy. Nicotine patch is the easy way. At least compared to the alternatives. Right. But is this wrong? Is this morally wrong? If addiction is wrong, then, by definition, logically, philosophically, it must be wrong to give an addictive drug by society. They can't both be correct, or can they? Should these programs be stopped? We're paying for it as taxpayers. Should we stop that program? I like Aristotle's. I think Aristotle is exactly correct. All right. You can read if you like. So those programs exist. They're relatively popular. What else can we do? How about antagonistic treatment? Antagonist. The drug is going to block the effects. If you're addicted to opiates, we give the drug naloxone, or its longer-acting version, naltrexone. Opiate antagonist, opiate blockers. So can you get high? No. It blocks the high, which is not any fun, right? Back for alcohol addiction. Naltrexone and its friends, there's several versions of this. Opiate addiction. But you have to have a great deal of motivation because the craving is not being satisfied. Your motivation has to be right here, persistent. They're effective, but the number of people who choose these treatments are very, very small because they're unpleasant to go through. Well, what can be worse than that? Punishment. punishment drugs. We're going to punish it. We're not going to block it. We're not going to be a partial agonist. It's mildest. We're going to punish them when they take the drug. We're going to make them sick as a dog. So if you take the drug, the chemical interaction between that drug and the drug I'm going to give you, and you puke. And abuse is the most popular. It's the most common used one, earliest one. So antabuse. Now, I have this, you take antabuse every day. And you walk by the bar, say, you know, I'm going to drink in 6 days. I've had a crappy day. That would be fabulous. I want to get drunk as a skunk. But take antabuse. I know if I go in there and start drinking one drink, I'm going to puke for the next 6 hours. When I'm going to make it home. Puking on the floor. Maybe I'll just keep on walking. So what do addicts do? They stop taking antabuse. Because, as one told me, I feel like hell when I take it. So no, you feel like hell when you take it and drink. That's the point of the drug. But that connection was not made. I feel like hell when I take it. Yeah. That is the reason you put the drug. That's punishment. That's not.
So it never stops the craving. They do it, they're successful, it never really.
It diminishes very slowly over time. Years. But once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. It gets easier 20 years later down the road, right? It's easier to walk by the bar and it's 20 years out than it is 20 weeks out. All right. So those programs are ineffective. Success rate 5%, give or take. That's embarrassingly low. It's a huge societal problem. Could we come up with some other approach if that approach is failing? How about vaccines? This is prevention, right? Prevention is worth a pound of cure. Prevention is worth a pound of cure. What's the prevention? We give the antibodies, the vaccination to the individual when he or she is a baby, maybe a newborn. They want of life, 2 weeks of life, 1 year of life, well before any drug behavior is going to be taken. And they make antibodies. So Ns and nicotine, for example, and the idea is that when you inject you vaccinate your daughter at age 1 year, and she used to be 14, she has her first cigarette. Also finished saying this is really great stuff. The antibodies bind to nicotine. Nicotine does not enter the brain, and therefore nicotine has absolutely no effect. It's just like smoking oak leaves or pine cones, which is not that popular, right? How many people smoke pine cones? Nobody. One person. So not very popular. Because nicotine has no effect, there's nothing to maintain the behavior, and the behavior ends very quickly. That's the idea. These vaccinations have been produced. They are not available on the market, but they exist. And the question is, would you do this? It costs $25 for vaccination. You pay $25 for your newborn son.
Is there a wrong answer?
Yes, sir.
No, I don't know. There's no easy way to do it.
You know that you would never become addicted to cigarettes, cocaine, or heroin. Also remove his choice. He's no longer choose to be an addict. Curtail his freedom of choice.
I wouldn't. What? I should have. Oh, yeah. Oh, really?
So 1/3 you said no. I assume the basis you might want to volunteer why they pick no.
No, it was weird if they wouldn't do it.
Yes.
Why would they do it?
Where you're injecting like part of the flu in it so that you get this complicated supply of injecting
How do you vaccinate? She asked me, how do you vaccinate it?
Una más. You're not injecting with a drug, and vaccination is not the drug itself. No. It's like, for example, the flu shot, you're not being injected with the flu virus in it. No.
Nicotine.
It's similar to the flu virus. It's influenza A, B. But not, you don't get the flu shot.
I thought they would do this because they're addicted.
Yeah. Anybody hear that? Nope, try again. So people should have the right to choose when it will be an edit time.
I want to got it.
Yeah. The right to choose. Our society is built upon the right to choose, correct? Choose wrong behavior, choose correct behavior. Why should we take it away? As a parent.
But you have to choose the right answer.
Think about what you do as a parent. Do you guide your children's choices?
I don't know.
Or should they have the right to choose? Should they be able to choose to join a gang if they want to at age 10?
No.
So why not? What's
So you're gonna get my
between
household
that
book?
and this? Yes, sir. No, no. They don't affect the body's natural ability to do anything except to respond to these 3 drugs.
I mean, addiction usually comes with like so based on like the society, moral values and stuff. I don't think anybody wants to like help
So, a drug addict may say, I wish my parents had chosen to not let me choose. What's that? One more time. Yes, sir. That's okay. Now you
I
stretch.
wish
Get
we
your
would
feet.
put everything aside.
Okay. Little loss.
The impression?
It's because the withdrawal symptoms are exactly opposite the drug effects themselves. So knowing the drug effects do, you already know what the withdrawal symptoms are going to be. They're the reverse. So, all right, one more time, we have to get developed next. Well, it's not on the market yet. The drug companies have one for nicotine, not for heroin or cocaine yet, but if that's the one, if the market is no better than that, they'll probably say it's not worth the money. They need guaranteed market. Although you can say 2/3 of the population might be worth pretty good. It's a one-time vaccination, and vaccinations make very little money. It's a one-time shot.
why would your body not create antibodies in the first place? If it would create antibodies.
We'll talk about that later. All right. First decision to take drug is voluntary. That is your choice point. So we're going to switch and talk about brain development. That is our next choice. Brain development.
Maybe you're not all this. Is it over? Is it over? So, how much is going to roll? One to PowerPoint? Or draft? I'm not even past the first PowerPoint.
Does anybody know what's wrong with his brain
That's
here?
bad. Oh, shoot.
This right here is abnormal. Anybody know what's wrong with it?
Is it poking out?
You could say, if you're skeptic, there's only half a brain. That's true. Besides being half a brain, what else is wrong with it? The person who used to use it has died. What else is wrong with it?
No spinal fluid.
The folding's abnormal. The folding is pretty normal. It's missing something. It's hard to recognize things that are missing. And you're not in a lot of brain anatomy, I understand that. It's not anatomy kind of class. But there's a part of the brain that goes right from front to back that's missing. It's called the corpus callosum. We're going to talk about the corpus callosum a lot later in class. Later this stuff, not today. We'll focus on how the left hemispheres talk to each other. That's why we have two hemispheres instead of just one hemisphere. Think about that. Why do we just have one brain hemisphere? Why do we need two? Can't one brain take care of everything? It could. So why have two? Do we need two hemispheres? And if we got two hemispheres, can they sometimes compete with each other? Like siblings can compete. Sure. That'll talk about it later. All right. But first, what do you call a Frenchman who wears sandals? Flip-flop.
Flip-flop.
You gotta say it.
Just flip-flop.
Take out flip-flop. Alright, so this is not a boy, not my patient, but he became famous. San Marcos, down just south of Austin, senior year, last game of the senior year, last quarter of the last game of his last year, and had been recruited by, not UT Austin, but some of the smaller schools, played football, and paid a scholarship, he get a free education, all sounds good in the bar. So, quarterback, he defensive back, he tackles the guy, saves a touchdown, thank goodness. But they rushed out to see him because he wasn't moving, and he finally got to the side. He said, "You never want to hear your child say, I can't move, I can't feel anything." What did he do? You have to be a doctor to know this, right? What happened? He broke his neck. It's a broken neck. This is very much like Christopher Reeve experienced. And before I read of him was last year, about 5 years after the accident, and he can move his fingers a little bit. On one hand, he can do this. That is all he's going to recover. He will not get any better. Of course, in a wheelchair because he can't stand or sit unassisted. He can only use his fingers. So he's strapped in the wheelchair. He can breathe on his own. Chris Reeve cannot breathe on his own, and he can talk. But his life is. Okay. 5 seasons. So this isolated case to pick out 5 seasons, 14 athletes. Quick calculation about how many people a year, how many high school seniors or students a year are paralyzed. About 3 a year in Texas. So should we get together as a society and say this is outrageous? And we're causing devastating injuries to 3 athletes a year. This is criminal behavior. We need to stop high school sports. So is that happening? Anybody on the campaign today? Nope. And if not, why not? All right. We'd like to say that we have a way to fix Chris's spinal cord, but we can't. And the reason for that is the way the brain and spinal cord put itself together. We're not going to do spinal cord development because we have to make things fit in our class. It's a brain kind of class. But brain injury also fails to respond fully despite our best efforts. And understanding why it fails requires to understand how the brain is put together to begin with. So we can discuss normal brain development and, of course, the disorders of the human brain along with illustrate what happens when this step goes wrong. Of course, it's a multi-step process. It begins way before birth. It doesn't happen when you're born. It began at about 2 weeks of life, about your 26th day. 3 weeks of life, 25th to 26th day of life. And it grows, and your brain is growing like gangbusters until about what age? Right about a year of age, the brain growth doesn't stop, but it really slows down. So the growth is massive until about 1 year of age, and then it's a more leisurely growth, reaching its maximum size when your brain is very biggest. at about age 20. And then it's all downhill. So those of you who are over 20 years of age, you've already been shrunk. Already been shrunk. Getting smaller and smaller as we sit here. Sad, right? So while I'm in this class, I should be out doing something fun. In my declining years. And the blue dots are bigger than the male dots, female dots. Men have bigger brains. Right? Why? Why do they have bigger brains? Because they don't work very well.
Oh, come on, bro.
Because they have bigger heads. Bigger body size, bigger heads. Unless you're a woman, you might have a different opinion. Right. So how about a figure question? Don't put them up. This we've not talked about yet. Can you figure out what this must be? Can you figure it out? What is microcephaly? When you talk about words, micro means, cephaly means head, small head, small head. Some kind of bizarre term. Neurogenesis, migration. Not genesis, apoptosis. But if you've read ahead like 10 slides, you know the answer to this question. If not, go miss the question. You know how you take a stab at it. Here, microcephaly. We can answer this question in about 5 or 6 slides.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty good, right? Are you impressed? You tell us me, because I don't even come to class. I just take 8 slides and show up the test thing.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the human brain. Take it out. Put in the coronal section. Detail to the right, we don't care about. I don't care about. Details to the right. Forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. You don't have to know anything to know this one. Got a front, a middle, and a back. I need to go to class to learn that. The forebrain is going to be the part here in pink, rose, whatever color this is. I'm a guy, I don't know what color it is. So humans are really good at forebrain. We are forebrain specialists. We got lots of forebrain. We don't have any more midbrain or hindbrain than most species. More primate species, right? But we've got fabulously developed forebrains. That's what makes us human. That's how we differ. All right, we got 2 hemispheres. I knew that already. And a hemisphere's got a cortex, and the cortex is the outer rind. Just like an orange is a rind, our cortex is the rind of the orange. A thin rind, thick rind. Some of us have pretty thick cortex because we're really smart. And it's wrinkled up, and the wrinkling gives us, here's a wrinkle. I see the wrinkle here. Is this a gyrus, where the pointer is, or a sulcus? Is it a ridge or a groove? Not sure? That's a pretty easy question.
Sure.
Everybody vote for gyrus? Gyrus it is. So, I'm with you now. And I ask you for a test question, what's in the sulcus? The answer is?
Yeah.
Nothing. It's a valley. Some valley, nothing. Air. Well, in this case, it might be some spinal fluid. But it's just a groove. It's a space in between the gyri. Nothing really important. No brain tissue anyway. So how does this come from? Where did this idea come from? All right. When you are pretty young, right? 18 days of age. That's really young. You're 2.5 weeks old. Your brain looks like a flat plate. It's called a neural plate. You think, right? For example, all right. Come on, piece of paper. I'll grab it maybe Tuesday. For hamburger today. All right, this is better. All right, so here's a neural plate. So maybe great engineering. I got a flat plate. I got somehow get a brain and spinal cord out of this plate. How do I do that? You're an engineer, right? You're a great engineer. What do you do? Flat plate, right? Well, the simplest thing to do, if you're an engineer, is just to roll it up. So when you do that, now what do you got? You got a tube, and you say, you know, that looks just like a spinal cord. And it is. In fact, as soon as you roll it up, which just takes about a week, you're done. Spinal cord essentially finished. I'm going to tell you some details, but you're basically done. Isn't that quick? Isn't that smart? A flat plate, and you tell the cells to grow differently, and they just bend up like this. Okay, we got a spinal cord. And of course, in evolution, that's all we had was a spinal cord. Then we said, yeah, the front end of the head is pretty important. Let's have a specialized group of cells out here. Everybody call it a brain. A new idea called, let's have a brain from the end of one in the spinal cord. It's not down here, and some of you might be. Most of us up here. Just teasing. All right. So how do we do this? Have you ever seen somebody blow glass? Anybody seen glass blow? Maybe YouTube, real life, or fun in real life. All you're going to take this round tube, and we're going to plug up one end, not the other end, just one end. Plug it up, called the lamina terminalis in the Latin. And then we're going to tell all the cells above where my finger is to grow like crazy. So these are seal it up here, and tell all these cells here to grow like crazy. Just divide, 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 divide. 250,000 times a second. Not a lot. 250,000 new neurons per second. That is mind-boggling. It is the fastest cell division the human body ever does anytime in this place. Because it's got to make a lot of cells. And what happens? These guys grow like crazy. They're going to go from flat plate, roll it up, and the cells, my hand is going to be the brain, right? They grow like crazy. And now what shape is this? We got, it's like Reunion Tower. We got my arms on the spinal cord, my hands on the brain. Well, what configuration is the brain in? Bad example? That looks pretty good to me. It's a sphere. Muy bien. It's a ball. It's round. It's like Reunion Tower. Okay? And you say, well, the brain is not exactly like a ball. It's kind of a ball shape. Well, what's the big difference between your brain and a ball? How many hemispheres do you have? How many does this guy? One. So how do we get 2 from 1? We just do that. Just fit right down the middle. Oh, okay. That's good. Now we got a mirror image. Left hemisphere and right hemisphere. So they're exactly the same. They're mirror images. They're homologs in biology. I simply splitting it right down the middle. Are there some children whose brains don't split down the middle? There are. They're called holoprosencephaly, not 45. The problem would be if your brain does not fully split down the middle. You've only got a fused hemisphere. So generally, fused fail to separate in the first place. That is the basic idea. You have 3 cell types. 3 cell types. The blue area, called ectoderm, is the outside skin. Outside skin. Ectoderm. Endoderm is the inside skin. Kind of crazy name. And the blue stuff is going to become your brain and spinal cord. So blue stuff, the ectoderm. So the primordial source of your brain and your spinal cord, all the neurons, are the blue area. It makes brain and spinal cord. What else does it make? It makes the outside skin, which we call skin. So you mean my skin comes the same place as my brain and spinal cord? Yep. So that means if I have some genetic disorder of my skin, I might have the same disorder of my brain. It comes from the same genetic source. Yep, you might. And how many disorders are there? 65 so far and counting. All rare. Okay. Here's rolling up. And here's what it looks like. Not in a person. I have this in people. Here's again. See the cells on your right hand side? That's the brain, right? Use the spinal cord to its left. The spinal cord is staying the same size. The cells are not dividing. They're not growing anymore. The cells are going like crazy on the right hand side. That's going to be the brain. Very simple. All right. Simple idea. Flat plate, roll to a tube. It's the same tissue that becomes the brain also becomes the skin. The source of those two can be linked. So here's a young man who had a seizure at school. comes to try to do it. And of course, he's got acne, right? Well, of course, you were in junior high school once. You probably had acne as well. But if you're a mother, well, moms go off, if you're a grandmother for certain, you then say, you know, that's not acne. And you say, how do you know? You say, I've seen acne in thousands of teenagers. I'm now 65 years of age. Maybe I teach high school, and I can tell you that's not acne. Well, why? What is about the skin that's not acne? It's red bumps on the skin. Isn't that acne? Red bumps on the face? I say no. So, what is it? Why is it not acne? I said no. Well, they're called angiofibromas. I knew that. Angiofibromas. I skipped to say that, but I was too shy. And we say, how long you had it? Oh, I've had it about 5 years. That's kind of early acne again, right? Has it changed? Has it changed from day to day? No, it's always looked like this. Does an acne come and go? Changes, it morphs. And we said, well, we said, you don't do that. We already know your diagnosis. We know what's wrong with your brain. So what do you mean? You haven't done any testing? Mom was a bit taken back by this. Well, if you look at your brain, it would look like this. You would have a malformed gyrus. In fact, the gyrus would be huge. Look how big it is. It's a monster gyrus. Well, isn't having more brain good? Well, not exactly, because the brain stuff, the cortex, and the cortex is the lining of the brain, the outer covering, and in a fresh brain, human brain section, the cortex should be colored pink. I'll look at this abnormal gyrus here, and there's no pink out here. There's a bunch of white stuff. So if it's not the outer cortex of cell bodies, it's that other stuff. Brain's got two tissue types. It's got neurons and glial cells. So that white stuff is too many glial cells in the place where the brain is supposed to be. The glial cells got the wrong message, and they grew like crazy. The neurons, for some reason, did not grow. And he's got tuberous sclerosis. If you were to hit this with your finger, it would be hard like a potato, like a tuber, hence the name. A hard potato. Of course, this is not his brain. And what happened to this child? He had dyslexia. He had learning disorder. So what happened to him after that? Well, he go to college. He went to A&M. A&M's kind of a college. And then he went to medical school. And now he's a family practice doctor in East Texas. Pretty cool, right? He has to work hard, really hard. He had epilepsy. He overcame all that. So I'm very impressed with him. All right. The 6 stages. The first thing you got to do when you're trying to make a brain. Making a brain is like building a house. Right? Same idea. Some of you house building analogy. You decide to build a house on a plot of land just on the other side of Lookout Drive. You buy a property. You want to build a house. The first thing I do is get some bricks, right? You can't build a house unless you got the brick, a brick house. So you call down to the brick factory in New Braunfels, where it is, and say, I need 100,000 bricks for my house. Please make me 100,000 bricks. I'll send you the money. You send them the money, and they do. They make 100,000 bricks. Now you have all the material you need to build your house. What's the problem? You got bricks, 100,000 bricks in your name, paid for on the site in New Braunfels. Well, besides some water, what do you got to do first? The bricks are at the factory in New Braunfels. Your house is in Richardson, Texas. Gonna be. You got to move the bricks from New Braunfels to Richardson. They got to migrate. Right? They got to migrate. They got to move them. Could something bad happen? What could happen in their genesis? You say you want 100,000 bricks. Could the guy's making 90,000 bricks? Call it a day. Either try to cheat you or just made a mistake. They could do that. But they made 110,000 bricks. But more bricks is good, right? What's the problem with having more bricks? They made, exactly, they made 200,000 bricks. You got to transport them from New Braunfels to Richardson. You got twice as many bricks on the truck. twice as much as it's supposed to carry. What might happen? The trucks might break down. They might run into the bridge. Might not clear the overpass. All kind of things might happen. So they made it, fortunately, they made 100,000 bricks like you asked them. They put on the truck, they worked the bridges in Texas, and they're now here. So you got a stack of bricks. Our brick houses made them all exactly the same material. You got a brick. Well, sometimes you need a half brick to go in the corners. Got to cut one in half. Not too bad. Some are going to be inside material, some will be outside material. Inside walls and outside walls. They're not the same material. You need to change the material. You got outside wall brick. If you want to take these bricks and make the inside, you got to cut them into small sections. So they can be inside brick. Go to inside walls. How do you do that? And now, more, you got to put them together. You got a bunch of bricks, they're all the right size, but now you got to put them together. That's called synaptogenesis. How neurons hook up to neurons. How glial cells talk to neurons. How astrocytes become best buds with their partner neurons. How oligos wrap around axons. It's putting things together. Putting brick next to brick. This brick and this brick go here in this orientation. Side by side. If you go like this, it ain't going to work. You can't build a wall like this. They got to be in the right orientation, side by side. Brick one and brick two. Just like this. It can't be like this. It can't be like that. It can't be at 90. So you take out your bricks and you build a wall. You've got 4 walls. And you say, dang it, I forgot something. You've got 4 walls. You got 4 walls. What? You ain't got no doors or windows. So you got 4 walls. That's good. But you can't get it out. So what do you got to do? You get your hammer out, and you knock a hole where the window is, and you say, well, that's a waste. I just spent an hour breaking this door, and now you're going to knock it out? Why didn't you tell me beforehand, and I wouldn't have done it? What's faster? It's faster to build the entire wall and to knock a hole in. That's faster. Is that wasteful? All these good bricks are now to be chucked in the trash. Pay good money for them and throw them away. They're now just dust. It is wasteful. Does the brain care? Not very much. The brain has got lots of capital spend. But you got the whole, you know, proper doors, proper windows, 4 walls, a roof. Everything's great, except you have a wife or you have a husband. And a year later, they say, you know, we need a new bedroom. We need to add a bathroom up. We need to change and have a window be here. We want to change that. Right? You have to readapt it. And how long does that process go on for? The rest of your life. So stage number 6 goes on for life. But the first part, the first 5 steps, when you build a house, is time limited. Like 6 months. And you're done. In our case, 9 months. The house is finished. First 5 steps take 9 months, give or take. This guy here takes the rest of your life. Call for questions. That's the overview. Now we're going to do the step-by-step and explain how this process happens and also what goes wrong at every step. Here's an example of what goes wrong. We have just rolled up our neural plate into a neural tube. We got a tube. Where is the brick factory? Where do neurons come from? Where is their nurture? Where is their birthplace? They all come from the same place. They all come from the very center. The neural tube is a roll now, and the very center of that roll, right next to what you see is called the central canal, is just a fluid-filled space full of CSF. The central canal of the brain is called what? Start with the V. The ventricle. So this is the ventricle of the spinal cord. We only got one right in the center, so called the central canal. And the birthplace is right next to it. There's something about that that is a place for a good place to raise babies. So a process called mitosis. You know, it's cell division. You begin with, in this picture, 45 neurons, 45 birthplaces. You're going to make 100 billion. We got 45 now. We're going to make 100 billion. We got about 9 months doing it. You gotta work really, really fast. What's the best way to do this? You get married to your spouse. You're a ventricular cell here. You're the cell here, and here's your spouse over here. You're married now. Just two of you. And you say, dear, how many kids would we have? How about 100 billion? That's good. We better get started. So you get about, how do cells make copies of themselves? They just divide, right? Mitosis is division. So you go from 2 cells to 4 cells. That's good. Now, if just you and me make cells, we make 1 cell every 4 hours, we ain't gonna get it done, right? We're gonna be like 90 billion neurons short. So what do? What do you tell your children to do? As soon as you learn, as soon as you're 5 years old, you divide. Okay? So they go to school, they just divide. And their kids divide, and their kids divide. Everybody just divides. Nobody doing anything except divide. That's pretty important. So nothing else gets done. Because you're busy procreating, shall we say. All right. And at some point, it's got to stop, right? 9 months, it's got to be timed, or your brain would be the size of Jupiter. So at some point, your brain has stopped dividing. Well, how did it know? Well, in the brick factory just counted, right? 99,000, 99, one more, 100,000, we're done. Stop me. Order says make 100,000 and then stop. And it does stop. Special order from Dallas. Make 100,000 and stop. If you misread the order, 10,000 bricks. Make 10,000. 10,000 we stop. You've got severe microcephaly. Brain the size of a walnut. What if you said, you look at the child is born, and you said, you know, we turn the factory back on because we only made 10,000, we made 10 billion neurons, we need 100 billion neurons. Can you turn it back on? The factory's made your special order brick. They made 10,000, sorry, I shouldn't have 10,000, they made 10,000. You call your pissed off, you say, look, I paid you, I want my 100,000 bricks. They say, sorry, you broke the mold. We made your order, and we cost more. Well, maybe some more. Sorry, can't do that. The factory is closed. It's gone out of business. There's no factory left. And you're stuck. There is no way in science to fix this problem. How about stem cells? How about stem cells? Does that work? What are stem cells? Some guys that had decided what they'll do for a living. They're like college freshmen, undecided major. Could be a neuron, could be a glial cell. We need 90 billion neurons. Could you start making some more for us? Possibly. How come we can't do that in real life? Because the human brain has very few stem cells, got some, and they're hard to work with. They're undecided major for a reason. May not be good at anything. Perhaps. I think we stop here. We're done. See y'all on Thursday.